Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Yarmouth. My name is John Auble. I'm a member of the Worship Council as a worship assistant, and I'm so glad to be greeting you this morning. A warm welcome to all of you gathered here in the sanctuary, and of course to those who are on Zoom with us this morning as well. Welcome. At First Universalist Church, our mission is to explore our faith. Embrace this community, and my favorite, to engage the world as spiritual seekers. Isn't that like a treasure hunt? May we take these words to heart. If this is your first time to our congregation, welcome. We invite you to fill out a connection card that you'll find located in front of your pew, so you may be connected to programs here that might be of interest to you. You can drop this in the offering plate during the offertory. For those joining with young children, nursery care is available during our service for babies and toddlers. Our nursery is located just outside this door and down the hallway on the left. Following our service, you're all invited to our coffee hour, our time of friendship and fellowship, downstairs in our gathering room. For more information about church happenings, see your Sunday morning news or come ask us questions at the welcome table downstairs during the gathering. We can help you connect. And now, I invite you to take a deep breath. And a big stretch. As we settle into this time together, our music director, Sam Chandler, will lead us in the worship.
Thanks, Sam. Good morning. How are you? It's good to see you. Happy New Year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear. I'm Reverend Hillary. I serve as the minister here, and bang a gong. I'm Reverend Hillary. I serve as the minister here, and it is with peace, friendship, and an intention to build beloved community that I say, whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, whatever it is you have done or need to do, you are welcome here. And we are so glad that in peace and friendship, you too have joined this beloved community in training this morning. Today, friends, we honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who would have turned 96 years old this past Wednesday, January 15th. And this morning, with a nod to our January theme of story, we'll lift up the history surrounding King's prophetic letter from a Birmingham jail. And we'll make some meaning from that letter and its history that can be applied to our lives in America right now. Could anyone use some prophetic wisdom right now? Yeah, I thought so. Stepping forward on an honest and hopeful note, our call to worship this morning is by the anti-war activist and humanist poet Denise Levertov. I share her poem For the New Year, 1981. I have a small grain of hope, one small crystal that gleams clear colors out of transparency. I need more. I break off a fragment to send to you. Please take this grain of hope so that mine won't shrink. Please share your fragment so that yours will grow. Only so by division will hope increase, like a clump of irises, which will cease to flower unless you distribute the clustered roots, unlikely source, clumsy and earth-covered, of grace. Good morning, my graceful friends. Let us turn to our neighbors now, ask them how they are, and wish them a good morning. And my friends, will you rise in body and spirit with me now and join in singing our opening hymn, number 205, Amazing Grace.
But
Beautiful. Will you remain risen for the words of our unison affirmation? They're written in your order of service. We are united in seeking to increase love with justice and to constitute a free church open to all people, mindful of our past and drawing upon modern knowledge. We respond to the spiritual needs of persons and are devoted to the common good in community, nation, and world. We cherish the integrity of each individual and search for truth with reason as our guide. We respect differences of opinion and strive to be a democratic community. We are concerned with this world and open to the future. You may be seated. And I welcome our friend John to light our chalice.
I invite any children who'd like to come up and make a wish and light things on fire. Any children? Don't leave me standing here. Here we go. Come on down. Come on down. Fabulous. Thank you, everybody. Now, who wants to be the microphone holder? Oh, fabulous. We have a microphone holder. So remember our words? We're going to say, light our chalice, peace and friendship. You all set? And then when we're done, I'm going to hold out the match and we all can blow it out and make a wish. Okay, here we go. Ready?
We light our chalice in peace and friendship.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Gwen. Good morning, Mac. Good morning. Good morning, Nicole.
You can have the children if you'd like to come up and not go away.
Yeah, if any kids want to come help us out this morning, we'd love some kids up front too.
Yeah.
Yeah! Yeah, come on, Minna.
Hello, unicorn. I know. Love it.
Hey, Arlen.
Good morning. So today we wanted to tell you about a person named Bell Hooks, who was an author, educator, and social justice thinker who helped a lot of people understand big ideas like racism and feminism.
And one of the things that Bell Hooks taught us is one of the phrases that she used, and one that we use at this church a lot, that is, love is in action.
Love is an action. This means that love isn't simply about saying I love you, but it is about doing. It's about people showing you care about them through the things you do and not just the words you say.
But we were wondering, what actions are loving? How can we show people that we love them through the things that we do?
So today, we're hoping some of our friends here can help us come up with ideas for what those loving actions are. So does anyone have a thought about what are some things we can do to show love?
And first, let's think about our family and friends. What can we do to show we love people in our family or our friends?
You could give them a hug.
Totally.
Like helping out, like doing chores, or like being polite and smiling.
Really
Good
great.
one.
Anyone else have an idea?
Ways you can show your friends or family you love them.
I like both of those ideas. Those are great.
And now let's think about other people, like maybe people at school, in our neighborhood, or in our town. How can we show them love?
Like respecting them and following and like listening.
That's great. Yeah.
Listening.
Listening, that's a good one.
Listening's a really good one.
Anyone out in the and the congregation have an idea? Smiling. That's a good one. And being kind. Wonderful. All right, well, thank you so much for your answers. Now we're going to say our children's blessing and head on down to Children's Chapel and Junior Youth Group. We are Unitarian, Universalists, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands.
All right, let's head on down.
We now come to the time in our service that we set aside for quiet prayer and meditation. Following this time, all are invited to come up and light a candle for a joy, sorrow, or concern you have. But first, will you join me in taking a deep, refreshing breath in, a calming breath out, and relax into a sacred time of silence. As these bright lights of love flicker and glow, I invite you to let into your mind someone far away who you do not know, who is in need of prayer, love, peace at this time. Let them come into your mind and circle them with love. Take a breath with them. Now let come into your mind someone near who you do not know, who seeks love, who seeks peace, who seeks to be free of suffering. Bring them near and circle them with love. Take a breath with them. Now let come into your mind someone you do know, someone close to you, in need of peace or love. Surround them with this love and peace. Take a breath with them. Now bring to mind someone who is very close to you, Perhaps the person sitting right next to you, or in front of you, or behind you, right now. Sense their life and their presence, their desire for peace and love. And surround them in peace and love. Take a breath with them, with everyone here in this room right now, alive in their precious life. And now pause and take a breath and feel the sensations of your own body, your own self. And fill yourself with the love and peace you need. Offer yourself a prayer. Take a breath. Let it be so. And amen. Our friend John will introduce our offering now. Thank you, John.
This morning, our half plate will be shared with an organization called In Her Presence. In Her Presence acts on the belief that every person has the right to flourish with dignity and worthiness. Organized and led by immigrant women living in Maine, In Her Presence offers workshops such as single mom support, parent coaching, senior support, and business cross-cultural conversations. In Her Presence provides a platform for Maine immigrant women and children to better integrate and succeed here in Maine. For those in the sanctuary this morning, we will be passing the offering plate to one another. For those gathered with us online, you're invited to make your offering using the donate button in the order of worship or by dropping a check in the mail. Thank you very much for your generosity.
Good morning. What's that? Oh. My name is Marie, and I sing with the choir. The offertory that we're doing today is words like freedom, and the words were written by Langston Hughes. Music and additional words by Audrey Snyder. And in order to feel comfortable singing the song, I felt like I needed to know a little bit more about it. So I did a little bit of research on it. And Langston Hughes was a poet, novelist, and playwright who lived from 1902 to 1967. And there's more information in this book if anybody is interested in reading some more about him. But in doing my research, I just did a quick search on the web, and I found that there's an interesting connection of this poem with Maine, and that is that the artist Ashley Bryan, who lived in Maine and died just in 2022, he was an author and illustrator of many children's books, and among them was Beautiful Blackbird. You may be familiar with that one, but he wrote this ABCs of African American Poetry, and we're going to just hear a little bit about that right now, I hope.
Ashley chose Langston Hughes' poem, Words Like Freedom, to represent the letter F in his ABC of African American poetry. He painted this portrait of the young Hughes to accompany it. Just a few months before he died, Hughes gave a talk about his life at the University of California, Los Angeles, in the course of which he recited this poem.
There are words like freedom, sweet and wonderful to say. On my heartstrings, freedom sings all day, every day. There are words like liberty that almost make me cry. If you had known what I knew, you would know why.
Words like freedom, words like liberty, words like freedom, words like liberty. There are words like freedom, sweet and
Thank you, choir. Friends, will you rise in body and spirit again and join in singing our song of thanksgiving? Thank you for your generosity. You may be seated. Our reading this morning is an excerpt from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail, written over a stretch of days in April 1963. I had hoped that the white moderate would reject the myth concerning time in relation to the struggle for freedom. I have just received a letter from a white brother. He writes, "All Christians know that colored people will receive equal rights eventually, but it is possible that you are in too great a hurry. The teachings of Christ have taken almost 2,000 years to accomplish what they have." Such an attitude stems from a tragic misconception of time. Time itself is neutral. It can be used either destructively or constructively. We must use time creatively, in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do right. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity. Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. You speak of our activity in Birmingham as extreme. At first, I was rather disappointed that fellow clergymen would see my nonviolent efforts as those of an extremist, but gradually I gained a measure of satisfaction from the label. For the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? Perhaps the South, the nation, and the world are in dire need of creative extremists. I had hoped that the white moderate would see this need. Perhaps I was too optimistic. Perhaps I expected too much. April 12th, 1963 was a Thursday, a Maundy Thursday. In fact, the holy day on the Christian calendar that symbolized the day Jesus held the Last Supper with his 12 disciples before his arrest and crucifixion the following day on Good Friday. Similar to Jesus, who withdrew to a garden after that supper to pray and steady himself for what was to come, on the night of Maundy Thursday, 1963, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. stood alone in the middle of a hotel room. He'd been in Birmingham, Alabama, for 9 days. Despite, or because 40% of the city's population was Black, Birmingham was perhaps the fiercest offender of civil rights in America during the Jim Crow era. often referred to as Birmingham, given the ceaseless bombings that occurred in black neighborhoods by KKK members. Birmingham was governed by George Wallace, who, in his inauguration speech, notoriously proclaimed, "In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever." Alongside Wallace, Bull Connor, an avowed white supremacist, held the seat of Public Safety Commissioner. Known for eliciting the help of Klansmen, attack dogs, and fire hoses to keep the peace, Connor was in charge of Birmingham's law enforcement and promised to fill the jails with anyone who defied the rules of segregation. And on April 12th, Maundy Thursday, 1963, the Birmingham jails were indeed quite full. Since April 2nd, a movement to disrupt the unjust order and desegregate Birmingham had been in full swing. The movement was centered on nonviolent, direct action, the theater of the oppressed. The purpose of direct action, Martin Luther King writes, is to foster such a tension that a community which refuses to negotiate is forced to confront an issue. By presenting our very bodies as a means of laying our case before the conscience of the local and national community, he writes, we seek to dramatize the issue such that it can no longer be ignored. Such displays of black men having milkshakes poured on their heads at diner counters, of black women being spit on, of unarmed people being threatened by snarling dogs, were often photographed and printed in national papers. These images served and continue to serve as a petition to Americans to recognize the shared humanity of black and white people and the suffering on all sides caused by racism. These images were a petition to end the violence and join in the struggle to create beloved community. On April 2nd, King and his comrades began their campaign in Birmingham by organizing sit-ins at lunch counters, but they only pulled off a few before Bull Connor ordered all the shops to close or staffed very menacing guards at their entrances. Protesters then, somewhat in disarray, either went home or took to the streets, and Connor jailed hundreds of them. When King arrived in Birmingham on April 3rd, just 5 days after his daughter Bernice had been born, he was dismayed to find that many of the people he'd counted on to support this movement were nowhere to be found. Many of these people were clergy and churchgoers, black and white clergy and black and white churchgoers. King spent a week watching the protests unfold and trying to inspire audiences to risk arrest and join the movement. On April 12th, Maundy Thursday, on the recommendation of Bull Connor, the Alabama Circuit Court issued an order banning all marches and protests. And King vowed to defy that order, implored others to do the same, but nearly 200 people were already in jail, and they were running out of bail money. Organizers suggested King, with his compelling rhetoric, travel to the north and raise funds from sympathetic donors. That Thursday evening, a dozen people gathered in his hotel suite, arguing their opinions. King sat silently in bed, smoking cigarettes with a far-away look in his eye. He was worried about the well-being of his people should they remain stuck in jail without bail at the hands of Bull Connor's police force. He was worried about presenting the same hypocrisy of so many other preachers who called for change and then avoided taking action. He worried about his own life. He'd never violated a court order before. He thought of his wife, his children, his infant daughter, just 2 weeks old. I sat there, he wrote of that evening in a journal, conscious of 24 pairs of eyes on me. I sat in the deepest silence I had ever felt. I was alone in that crowded room. While the mythology surrounding Reverend Martin Luther King certainly has uplifted and inspired many over the past 60 years, it's also served to sanitize and simplify him. In my studies of King, I have always been drawn to moments like this one, as King sits in bed, anxious, uncertain, afraid, annoyed. Something about remembering that he was an actual human being makes his accomplishments, his faith, his calls to action and courage so much more compelling to me. In moments like this, his memory transforms from unattainable myth to clear and present challenge to us humans, just like him, to us right now. A moment like all other moments when the time is ripe to do what's right. Though King believed in our inherent goodness and our potential to create beloved community, he didn't believe just because we could create beloved community, we necessarily would. In fact, it's just as likely we would actively work against his dreams, spurred by complacency and hatred, two traits he believed corroded the soul and were just as natural to humans as goodness. Our challenge then and now is to acknowledge and confront these tendencies in us with courage and loving action. That is, love as an action, love as a direct action. For the ends rely upon the means, my friends. In these times, as in many times over the course of American history, it is very easy to slip into mindsets of hatred and complacency. But I must ask you something that I imagine MLK would ask us. What do hatred and complacency create? What do hatred and complacency do to your life? What do they do to life? King believed that we must internally reflect the world we want to live externally. So what's going on inside you these days? Dreams or nightmares? Possibilities or dead ends? Soul searching and direct action? Or soul corrosion and passivity? Probably all of it. That's okay. Just know it. Get close to it. As King sat smoking in bed, he heard through the open window the sound of people singing in the 16th Street Baptist Church. Organizers were running a direct action training there. He rose from bed, walked into another room, closed the door, and stood alone. I was standing at the center of all my life brought me to be, he wrote of the moment. I thought about the Birmingham Black community waiting. Then my mind leaped beyond the motel, past the city jail, past the city lines and state lines, and I thought about the 20 million Black people who dreamed that someday they might be able to cross the Red Sea of injustice and find their way to the promised land of integration and freedom. At that point, there was no more room in me for doubt. King opened his suitcase and pulled out a pair of dungarees and a gray work shirt, the same clothes his ancestors wore while picking cotton, the same garb chain gangs wear while laboring in the sun. He was dressed to go to jail. When he returned to the other room, everyone understood his decision. The following Good Friday morning, accompanied by several other leaders dressed in workmen's clothes, King marched into the street and knelt in prayer. He was quickly seized, dragged to a paddy wagon, and taken to jail. Put him in solitary, Bull Connor directed. Pull out the bed. The following morning, a picture ran in the Birmingham paper of King being arrested, and printed below the photo was a letter written by 8 white clergymen decrying the protests. We recognize the natural impatience of people who feel their hopes are slow in being realized, the letter read, but we are convinced that these demonstrations are unwise and untimely. We appeal to both our white and black citizenry to observe the principles of law, order, and common sense. After a rough night in his bedless, solitary cell, King's lawyer arrived the following morning and showed him the paper. King was mad. Nothing riled him more than racism in the church. Nothing. So he started writing, and he didn't stop. For days, he wrote a letter in response to the clergy, the church, the white moderate, America. He wrote in the margins of newspapers, on toilet paper, on napkins, on the greasy paper bags that contained his meals. He secretly handed these scraps to his lawyer, who passed them along to his secretary, a woman named Willie Pearl, who typed them up. Of the task, Pearl said, "The writing was hard to make out and the scraps were not in order. It was the worst thing I ever had to do in my life." In the end, King's 20-page-long letter from a Birmingham jail was one of his most searing and influential statements on complacent racism in America. Today, it is invoked as often as his "I have a dream" speech. If you haven't read it, guys, read it, read it, read it. If you have read it, read it again. Every single line says something. While the letter from a Birmingham jail would have an illustrious career ahead of it, when bail was posted for King over a week later, it had not been published yet, and no impact from the letter was readily apparent. The protests continue to rage on. Over 2,000 people were in jail, and King and his co-organizers were literally running out of manpower. And that is when the kids showed up. Seeing their fathers, grandfathers, and neighbors beaten, jailed, bombed, they understood the gravity of the matter. Children and teenagers came to the protest trainings and organized their own crusade. And when the photos of their march were printed, Americans could not look away. The awareness that a person of any age could courageously confront injustice and be an extremist for love was made real by their presence. Supporters and reporters poured into Birmingham. Their numbers and passion could not be contained. By early May, Birmingham counselors were in negotiations with King. Well, what do you have to say for yourselves? What's your message? What are your demands?
All right.
2, 4, 6, 8. Love is what we appreciate.
All right, we have some representatives from Junior Youth Group who would like to share some ideas we have about ways that love can be in action. You ready to rumble? Okay, I'll pass it to you and I'll give you this. Here you go.
Okay, so we talked about how love is, there's many kinds of love in actions. One of them is standing up for what's right and telling others who are unkind to like think about their actions and change. Yeah.
Another one is protesting and believing in what you believe in.
Another one is noticing when someone's sad and helping them out.
Another one is making everyone's voice be heard.
Another one is don't exclude others, make new friends, and respect their feelings.
Participation in stuff that builds community.
Don't exclude others, make new friends, and respect their feelings.
Yeah. Cool.
Why do I get the
No, hit the
Can I have that? Thank you. Thank you so much for reminding us how love is in action. The story of America does not end here, my friends. But let's remember, time is neutral. It can be used either destructively or creatively, and we must use it constructively and creatively. The time is always ripe to do what's right, to do what's right, to love as an action. So let us meet the challenge of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. today and tomorrow and always, and be extremists for love. Let us search our souls, maintain our awareness, and act, confronting injustice when it's right there, confronting hatred and complacency when it's right here, and reflecting internally and in all our daily actions and interactions the world we want to see made real. Let it be so. May the people say it with me. Let it be so. Blessed be and amen. Our closing song is This Little Light of Mine. I hope y'all will stay up here and play some maracas while we sing it. Will you rise in body and spirit, my friends? Number 118.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Will you remain risen for our closing benediction, my friends? Taking a breath. May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings experience profound joy and the causes of profound joy. And may all beings dedicate their lives to the creation of beloved community so that all can get free. And will you join me in the words of our unison benediction written in your order? For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. For those who come to seek a path, may the way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Let it be so. The service begins when the service ends, my friends. Go in peace.